with Basmati. How are you?
I'm doing great, Margie. Great to hear your voice.
Yeah, yours too. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
I'm excited for the conversation.
Me too. So today we're talking with Thane Kraut. He does memory care consulting, and he's a life coach. He's going to share with us a little bit about his journey into the memory care consulting and maybe some little diamonds we can find in that. So let's go, Thane. Tell us a little bit.
Well, I started out in massage almost 30 years ago, and immediately in massage, I was always fascinated without even knowing why or how that what people called stress seemed there was so much more to it than tension in the tissues or pain in joints or limitations of range of motion. And so that truly began the professional journey and the personal deepening of my own next steps. And that was 30 years ago. And to realize so much of what occurs in our lives is in our brain, in our beliefs, and in our thoughts and our emotions. And that constantly has challenged me and expanded me and growing me to where I am today, to realize the power of beliefs and how necessary it is for individuals to reconnect with that creative part of our own. Where are our thoughts? Where do they come from? How do they form? Our emotional body and our emotional state, and realizing that it is always within us to change that if our life isn't going the direction we want it to go. So it's just the science of it, the metaphysics of it, the individual opportunity to create a great life, whatever that means to the individual. To me, whether it's massage or life coaching, or especially now in memory care with Alzheimer's and dementia, to support people in becoming more aware of how they are the creators and the decision makers of the quality of their life.
Yeah, that is so true. And I know your journey went from you were in Montana, right, and then in California. I'm switching that just a little bit to also share a little bit how our environment affects us, right? And yeah, and what that looks like. So you've been really blessed to venture out into multiple places, and not only with people that you work with, but also the environment that surrounds them, and how being supported in every area of our life is so important, right? Like, it just is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I moved here to Northwest Montana back in mid-October of this last year. And after 32 years plus of living in the Denver, Colorado area, it was a city that in 1986 when I moved there, it was still considered a cow town, as people referred to it.
Yeah. And
now it is on a growing city of 2 million people or so, and it was just time for change. And so to move here was part of what you had just said about that environment. It's been an incredible next step for me of living through real winter for the first time in many years.
And you picked a cold one.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I bring that up because, one, I know that you can work with people from a distance doing the consulting, but you've supported yourself in such a way, not only environmentally but physically, to where that gives you this, like, I just think this beautiful gift. Like, in every conversation I've had with you, there's this peace and calm in you that feels like you feel truly supported, not only by Earth but by, like, you and your destiny, right?
It's really well said. Thank you. Yeah, that was part of I realized so much of my professional journey has always been the personal journey, and maybe that is for a lot of people, maybe it isn't.
Yes.
I think it depends on the individual when you ask them. That massage for me, for the 30 years of doing it, was constantly, literally, pun intended, keeping me in touch with myself, through connecting with others. And what I specialized in massage was integrative therapy, meaning that part of helping them to define is, oh, I'm so stressed out. It's like, yes, now let's take a look at that word. I know what you mean from my definition of stress, but I don't know what you mean through your definition.
Yeah.
And when people become or are willing to be aware of what we so easily just use a word that fits, but we haven't connected through consciousness and the intimacy of what is the source of that word. Because what stresses me out and what stresses another person out can be two completely different ideas, awarenesses, emotional responses, fear, anger, rage, peace, calm. And that's that part that just constantly fascinates me, is helping people to become aware of their reactive life.
Oh, very, very well said. I'm a huge I love the practice of non-reaction when I can, right? And feeling it in my body and where that impacts me when I do feel a reaction, whether I'm being triggered, and I'm like, oh, okay, wow, I'm feeling that in my knee, and I can go back in my timeline and associate things with that, right? It's pretty fascinating when we take the time to really get to know ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, when you had sent some questions to me to answer, and I remember years ago, I was looking at in the different modalities of what I do in daily life that, we have I use the small s of self that's more reactive or more subconscious. And then the capital S self is the person who we are. And you can call it your spirit, your soul, whichever word uses to define that. But that capital S is our conscious self. Mm-hmm. That, how often are we conscious in our day? And I've certainly become aware of, literally, that becoming conscious is a practice. Mm-hmm. So whatever modality of Sufism, Buddhism, any spiritual context, it is always the journey to becoming aware.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So share with us a little bit about what it's like to be a memory care consultant. And I love this. You said how you found the gift in Alzheimer's. Would you mind touching on that just a little bit?
Sure. That my personal lifestyle was, I was raised in a household where at the age of 3, my mother went from a dynamic, independent businesswoman, and this is in the early 60s, to she had a brain tumor, and all of a sudden the household of 4 kids, which one was a brand new baby, my younger brother, and then myself, older sister and older brother, and my dad, we went from having this amazing life, which at 3 I wasn't really aware of, to dramatic change. And that dramatic change affected the course of my life. And both my mom and dad being the best friends of my life, always and forever, and I never lost that. But I was raised in my mother that from that moment on, after a brain tumor, left her with a paralysis, in a speech impediment, they call it, as well as her right side paralyzed. And through those challenges and the initial reaction that in the operation, the doctors were clear that she was either going to die or be a vegetable. And she came back and became this dynamic, incredible, creative, artistic, loving person that she always was. There's so much more to that story. And so I grew up around that. And my dad, who as a Montana State Highway Patrolman, did a job that he loved. And so it was by being immersed in daily life that it wasn't something that was so much talked about as I was raised in it. And like most of us, I didn't become aware of those gifts until I became much older. So that was the foundation that I was raised in. And then my late wife, who passed away, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the age of 63, and she passed away at 68. And so it was that, once again, being intimately immersed in a disease process, in a in a cognitive challenge, which is what I was raised in with my mom, that I became deeply engrossed and immersed in living it daily, that it wasn't something that was conceptual. It wasn't something that I went to a spiritual retreat and read about. It became my daily life.
Yes. And so give us just a wonderful, like multiple things are going through my head right now, and I'm like, one, what a powerful, beautiful experience you had with your parents and how that helped you later in life in your own personal relationship, right? Isn't that just so beautiful how when we pay attention to like the little gifts we're given along the way, how we're kind of comforted in that.
Absolutely. I fully believe that when we become at a certain level of awareness and consciousness and willingness, we can look back and see that which is simply unexplainable, how we have been constantly guided or moved along a certain path, and that what was a tragedy, a trauma, a drama, a loss, if we are willing to let go of constantly carrying a burden, these gifts are automatic. They are always present. We don't have to do anything to create them, but they will only reveal themselves when we are willing to surrender our story. And that was why what I call the gift of Alzheimer's were the numerous, from spiritual experiences to the physical day-to-day, to the people that came into the circle of my life to support and assist at all levels this evolution of my own personal life with my wife as she also evolved through Alzheimer's and then eventually passed away.
I am totally in love with your story and in love with the fact that you are so obviously deeply connected to not only yourself, but Earth, and deeply connected to your vision and open in fluidity with how you want to work with that. And it's extremely obvious. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, I think, Thane, I'm gonna say let's end on that. It was beautifully done, and we will definitely have another conversation with you. Looking forward to doing a Zoom video with you as well. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, Margie, thank you so much for this opportunity to reach people that I otherwise may not, and to remind them that regardless of whatever challenge they're being confronted with, there are answers, there is always help, and it's simply within each and every individual to reach out and to realize they're never alone. And so thank you for this time, and thank you for your questions and the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Thane, and thank you for that. We are never alone. Thank you.
You bet.
Have a beautiful day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Margie. You also. Bye.